this is a segment that's going out to the lads. And I know it's the lads because I asked about our statistics, and we've got about a 90% audience share of men on YouTube, which I'm not surprised about. You know, it's good to see you. Salutes out there for every single one of you. But this is one that I'm going to address to you guys because we often talk about some of the things in society that are very harmful, not just towards young men, but young women. We've been talking a lot about a lot of the pressures that they face to do very degenerate things like OnlyFans, to really debase themselves on the altar of progressivism. And a lot of that can come from social media pressure. A lot of that can come from peer pressure. And a lot of men may like to think that they don't suffer from those same sorts of things. But I do think it is important to talk about how they do, because men can have body image issues that often come from striving too hard to get jacked, to get lean, to emulate this body type that we see all the time in, like, say, Marvel films. You see Chris Hemsworth, and you think to yourself, I want to look like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to improve yourself. I go to the gym. You should go to the gym more often.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I consider myself well-rounded, thank you.
Oh, there we go, yeah. Josh is excellently shaped for rolling down hills.
I'm conserving energy, which is... I'm energy efficient, me.
Yeah, there you go. So whatever gets you to sleep at night, mate. But basically, there's a lot of pressure, and you should go to the gym. I think the striving to better yourself and to become a stronger person will make you feel better in yourself. It'll have excellent mental health effects. It'll also make you better able to, have a family, see yourself with self-respect and dignity so that you're able to stand up for yourself and your beliefs more in a more effective way. So there's plenty of benefits from it. But there are plenty of scams out there, and there are plenty of images put forward for men of these super jacked, super hench guys, which are really not accurate or not representative of the sorts of results that you can get from the gym if you're going and you're doing it naturally, that being not taking human growth hormones or steroids or anything like that. But there are plenty of people out there who do those sorts of things who won't tell you, and it'll mislead a lot of people into wondering why they don't look like Chris Hemsworth, or why they don't look like, for instance, the Liver King, who is somebody who got caught out recently for saying that he wasn't on steroids when he was, while also trying to promote this exorbitantly expensive, very obtuse, natural, as he referred to it as, ancestral lifestyle. And on that note, Josh recently did a Contemplations with Bo, talking about the origins of humanity. This was part 2 of a 2-part series, or are you doing more?
Indeed, yeah, it's 2 parts.
Yeah, and you guys were talking about where humans come from, whether we're, as it says in this thumbnail here, whether we're all really from Africa. And do you want to give a little detail on it?
Sure. So I pretty much traced millions of years of the paleoanthropological record, all the way back from when we shared common ancestors with chimpanzees, all the way up until anatomically modern humans existed. And I just looked at what the evidence was, which obviously is pretty sparse, but we can make some conclusions about some things, and tried to give an impression of what our history was like and what we were like in the past to better understand ourselves in the present. Because, of course, once we understand the environment in which we were well adapted to, the thing that is modernity makes a lot more sense, because, of course, we were adapted for this thing that we did for millions and millions of years, whereas smartphones, the internet, and cars and all of that sort of stuff were not as well adapted for. So understanding how we are predisposed helps you to better live in the modern day, as well as it being very interesting.
Yes. So there is actually some, ideas behind this whole idea that this Liver King guy puts forward for ancestral living, the idea in getting in touch with your roots, being a bit more natural, being a lot less sedentary than most people
I adhere
are
to
nowadays.
the paleo diet, which pretty much is just eating a hunter-gatherer's diet rather than
And it makes
anything
sense,
else.
and oftentimes it's quite tasty for the most part. So it's good for you. But he's the sort of guy who goes out and does videos like this. In the next one, hunting with African tribes, and this is brilliant because it's hilarious. If you just don't play the video, but just scrub through to the point where we can see him with the African tribes. I think it's like 15 minutes in. So you can see his body. Yeah, here we go. So this is the natural ancestral body type that we can see. Here's him with his natural ancestral body with the African tribes. who definitely don't seem to share that body type, do they?
Well, yes, having big muscles isn't very helpful if you're on your feet moving all day, because you're just going to consume more calories than is necessary to survive.
And in fact, if you are on your feet moving all day, you'll probably burn enough calories that it will actively start to use the muscle to fuel it, as well as the calories and fat that you've got.
Being that muscly is a Western luxury.
It really is. I mean, it's the sort of things that the Greeks did back in the day with all the old statues, but even they weren't looking like that because, as far as I'm aware, the ancient Greeks didn't have access to anabolic steroids.
Well, they were trying to represent the ideal body form. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was attainable for the average person in ancient Greece, does it?
No, of course, but it's the old Socrates thing. It would be a shame for a man to die without seeing the full potential that his body can take, which is absolutely true as far as I'm concerned, but this is not a natural expectation to set for any young man to be able to say, one, that you can be this lean and still as bulky as he is, because generally speaking, if you're not on steroids, you have an option of two things, which is either you look big in clothes, and then when you take your top off, you look a bit smaller because you're less lean, or you look tiny in clothes and like you don't even lift, but then you take your shirt off and you look enormous. You know, that's generally the dichotomy you've got to choose from. This is not a reasonable expectation for young men. And if young men go into the gym expecting, as you see from Chris Hemsworth and all those other celebrity meal plans and such, to be able to go in for 8 weeks and put on 20 pounds of muscle as long as you eat lean meat and brown rice, no, that's going to destroy a lot of young men's sense of security within themselves. It's going to destroy the expectations that they can set for themselves. It's just going to put them off trying to better themselves, because they'll go in, they won't get those results immediately. They'll go, well, I guess I'm just not good enough then. And they'll go home and they'll never go back. So it's awful, these kinds of expectations. And it's also just the grift of it. So let's go. He's got other videos talking about what it's like to fast for 5 days. That's what's going to get you ripped if you just starve yourself unnecessarily for 5 days in a row.
Surely not good for you.
And then there's where he got his name from, the Liver King, which is part of his ancestral diet, which is the ridiculous raw food that he eats. So here's his diet and workout plan. Well, I'll just go through his diet. So for breakfast, so it starts off okay, all right? 6 whole eggs, fine. Protein shake, also good. Greek yogurt and maple syrup. This is all fine. It's not. I mean, protein shakes and yogurt and maple syrup. It's not sounding that ancestral so far, but that's fine. That's fine. Then we get a 2-ounce liver raw.
There's no need. He does realise that.
And then 1 ounce of bone marrow.
By cooking it makes the calories more available, right? It makes it harder to digest if you don't cook it, and it's also just disgusting. You'll have to fight your gag reflex. You might get parasites as well. There was someone who had a raw meat diet for 30 years, and then I saw a neuroimaging scan of their brain, and you could see all of the parasites in their brain, and there's more parasite than brain, really.
Really? So, well, that would make sense as to how the Liver King ended up how he did, because in dinner, he's got 16 ounces of cooked red meat. That's all right.
Sounds all right to me,
followed by 2 to 3 ounces of bull testicles. That's disgusting.
I've never wanted to be buff enough to eat.
And now I'll show you a video of him eating it.
Oh no.
All right, so he's got this one, Breaking the Fast with Liver King, and I just thought I'd play a little bit of a clip from this of him starting this meal, if you want to play it.
Liver King here. I just broke my 24-hour fast by doing a simulated successful hunt, and now it is time to feast. Here's what we get to have. 3 ounces of liver. We got a couple ounces of pure marrow that we're gonna scoop right out of this femur. We got 10 ounces of some bone and skin on sardines. 3 ounces of some fresh sashimi-style testicles. We have our vegetables. We have a huge pile of carbs. We got some Liver King concoction in here with some grass-finished yogurt and maple syrup. And last but not least, here are my good friends, my condiments. My farm fresh fermented ketchup, my maple syrup, and my olive oil. This is what Liver King gets to eat today. Liver King out.
So if you just eat a disgusting meal like that, you can look this unnaturally jacked as well.
But that's like 2 to 3 days worth of food for a hunter-gatherer, if not more.
I think I obviously did not watch him eat the whole thing, but I skipped it after he finished, and he said it's something like 5,000 to 6,000 calories. And I'm sorry, generally speaking, if you're trying to get ripped and you're trying to put on muscle, you want to be in a calorie surplus, yes, but you only need to be about 200 to 300 calories above your maintenance calories. So if you're a normal guy, your normal average height, and you only need about 2,500 calories to maintain your weight, if you're working out, you want to put on muscle, maybe bump that up to 2,800. If you eat 5,000 calories a day, you will just get fat. It doesn't matter where those calories are coming from, you will just get fat.
I have verified the science.
Yeah, Josh has been very hands-on with testing this. We're very proud of him for the work that he's done. You know, putting your body through that rigorous testing must have been hell.
It was so difficult.
It really must have been. But I'm sorry, I can never, ever hold my face straight when he goes, I've got these sashimi-style testicles.
Trying to make them sound nice.
No, to be fair, he does break character near the end where he's talking about it and he goes, you know, like, oh, all of that food was amazing. The testicles were gross, but everything else was amazing. I mean, I've never personally found the idea of eating bone marrow that appetizing, but you know, some people, you know, I'm sure there are health benefits to it.
It's meant to be quite good for you.
Yeah, I hear that as well, but I don't want to touch the stuff, to be honest. It's making me hungry for a KFC. But then, of course, it all came out that everything that he was talking about, because he was very adamant the whole time, I'm completely natural. Because Joe Rogan had come out and said it, obviously, I think Joe Rogan's exact words were, he's got an ass full of steroids. I mean, obviously. And Joe Rogan may not have even known just how true that was, because his name, if you scroll down just so that we can get it, his name was Brian Johnson, not the AC/DC vocalist.
His name was Brian Johnson.
He was outed by a fellow bodybuilder who claimed to have evidence of his steroid use, as seen in leaked emails allegedly sent by Johnson. The father of two had been posting on Instagram since August 2021, amassing over 1.7 million followers and swearing his intense workouts and eating as a modern caveman are the secret to how he's achieved and maintained his ripped body.
But the thing is, hunter-gatherers ate a lot less meat than that a lot of the time. Sure, they would have meat occasionally, but they would eat things like nuts and berries.
And this is why we're omnivores.
Yeah, you would eat quite a selection, leafy greens. You would just eat whatever you had to hand because the goal was survival, not making mad gains.
Although I would love to go back in time and see the cavemen just like a makeshift gym. They're just benching massive mammoth bones.
I was just going to say that.
That would be amazing, like Flintstones style. Johnson had been accused of using PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, by a YouTuber who goes by Derek, whose channel More Plates, More Dates is dedicated to speculating whether bodybuilders are natty or not. Natty meaning natural, meaning naturally ripped or using steroids. In the hour-long video, Derek showed emails that he claimed Johnson had sent to an unnamed coach in 2021, in which the muscle man allegedly shares his goals to build his Liver King brand and admits to spending over $11,000 a month on simply one drug. And if we scroll through and find the email, because they do have the email in here, John. That's correct. Here it is. So he's taking Omnitrope, which he says later on, $11,000 per month for my new dose, which is 4 vials per week, 16 vials per month. And then, for instance, here's what I'm currently taking, because he was worried, is this interfering with all of this other cocktail of steroids that I'm taking? He's been taking one for a year. He's got ibutamoren. I don't know some of these ones, but it's absolutely ridiculous, this laundry list of steroids that he's taking, while he's always been going on about how natural he is. And it says in the article here, Johnson had previously addressed these allegations about using PEDs, bluntly but cheekily telling a Barstool Sports podcast, I'll be honest, I take PEDs. I prioritize, execute, and dominate every effing morning. Which is so cringe. That's so cringe, especially when it turned out you're a liar. You're a liar and you were scamming people, because he was making hundreds of millions of dollars from this. He had a supplement range on his website. You know, his Ancestral living, he said, I sleep on a wooden box on the floor with just a blanket over me. I don't have Wi-Fi in my house, which, I mean, it must be very difficult to maintain a 24/7 internet empire if you've not got Wi-Fi in your house. And why did anybody think this was true? I'll tell you why. Because it's wish fulfillment. Because you want to look at somebody like this and see that lifestyle and say, that's completely natural. I can do that too. I'm sorry, you can't. Unless you are the possessor of freakish genetics, you will not be able to get into that kind of shape, especially not eating raw testicles.
There's also the fact that he really doesn't understand what hunter-gatherers actually live like, in that they had the ability to cook food. Like, that's existed for at least, we know, 780,000 years. I think there was a site in northern Israel which had controlled fire use. So even our more primitive ancestors could cook food. So you don't have to eat things raw. That's just a bit weird.
Of course not. And once again, I do actually kind of like the spirit of what he's trying to do, which is trying to say you need to get more in touch with the roots of your ancestors and live in a more active lifestyle. You need to get out. You need to literally touch grass, is basically what he was saying. Stop being so sedentary. Stop playing video games all day. Go out and do something a bit more natural. And I respect that. But then you deface the entire message by just being an outright liar. He did confess to it and admitted, yeah, I lied. And this has got to be the worst apology I've ever seen. So just play this clip.
Primals, I'm making this video to apologize. Because I f***ed up. Because I'm embarrassed and ashamed. Because I lied. And I misled a lot of people. I've stated that this is a complicated as topic, at least to me it is, because before social media, I was rich and anonymous, and after social media, I'm still rich, but no longer anonymous, and I never expected this kind of exposure in the public eye. It's been tricky as to navigate. Well, clearly I did it wrong, and I'm here now to set the record straight. Yes, I've done steroids, and yes, I am on steroids, monitored and managed by a trained hormone clinician. Liver King, the public figure, was an experiment to spread the message, to bring awareness to the 4,000 people a day who kill themselves, the 80,000 people a day that try to kill themselves. Our people are hurting at record rates with depression, autoimmune, anxiety, infertility, low ambition in life. Our young men are hurting the most, feeling lost, weak, and submissive. So I made it my job to model, teach, and preach a simple, elegant solution called ancestral living, the 9 ancestral tenets, so our people no longer have to suffer, so we can collectively express our highest and most dominant form. This is my fight. This is why I exist.
I'm sorry, where's the apology?
Yeah, that was pretty slimy, wasn't it?
That was the most self-serving confession I've ever seen. He's trying to turn himself into some kind of Icarus figure. I just flew too close to the sun. I'm still a good guy. I did it for all the right reasons.
He also needs to make some vocabulary gains because he was awfully sweary.
There's
no need for that.
He really
Mr.
was.
Liver King.
It was just pathetic. And once again, I appreciate the foundations of what he's talking about there. He's talking about, young men being depressed, suicide rates for young men being far, far too high, trying to inspire them. That's all fine, but you lied to them. And, that young man who maybe watched your video, who was inspired at first, when they find out that you were lying to him, how's he going to feel?
It's going to be worse than doing nothing, probably.
Yeah. It is. So I just think this whole story is kind of disgusting, but I think it is important to get a positive message out of here, which is that you can do lots of things to improve yourself. And I think one of the best things that you can do is to try and get yourself into a routine where you're going out, you're being more active. You don't necessarily need to go to the gym at first, but I do recommend going to the gym, trying to make yourself stronger. You'll be more attractive to women. You'll be better for everybody around you. If you plan on becoming a father, you'll be better equipped to, protect your children, because it's not just about the aesthetics of it. It's about the actual strength that you gain from it, the physical strength, being able to lift more weight, and also being able to look yourself in the eye every morning and say that you're proud of yourself, which will put you on a better footing to be able to face all the challenges of every single day. And one of the best ways to avoid getting into a Liver King trap is to recognize the very clear ways, there are things that show you that people are on steroids. So there's this article here, and there's a few that are going to be very obvious, but a lot of people still don't pay attention to this because they don't want to accept that somebody who they may idolize may be doing this. I think there's no real problem if somebody is doing steroids as long as they admit it. as long as they're honest about it, but a lot of people don't, and they try and sell you this unattainable lifestyle in the same way that happens to a lot of young women. So the first one is just the gains timeline. Have they made an unnatural amount of gains in a very short amount of time? Especially the whole Hollywood celebrity, oh, I put on 20 pounds of muscle in 8 weeks. Doesn't happen. That doesn't happen if you're not on steroids. There's a 3D delts. If you scroll down to number 3, delts being your shoulders, if you're not aware of the terms for the muscles. So if you've got massive boulder shoulders, the person is like this guy here. If you that guy's not natural. Sorry to break it to you.
It looks photoshopped. It looks so unnatural.
I know, because one of the things that it says in here is that you've got androgen receptors in your delts, and AAS, anabolic androgenic steroids, make those much more susceptible to growth. So that's why you end up with much larger shoulders than you would if you were just training naturally. There's steroid gut, which I think we've all seen those images of like there. And Joe Rogan himself, who admits to doing all this stuff, also has that. Got flushed skin. If you're taking steroids, your skin goes much more pink. Excessive vascularity. So if there's a ridiculous amount of veins everywhere, all over the person, that's a clear sign. So one that I wasn't aware of, skull enlargement. It actually makes your skull bigger. And the picture they've got is great for it, because there's Sylvester Stallone in the 70s and Sylvester Stallone nowadays. His head has actively got a lot larger. And it's very strange because I hadn't noticed that before. And here's one, and this is what they're saying. I just want everybody to know as I list these features, I'm completely natural. I haven't taken anything. I never want to touch anything like that because I don't want shriveled testicles. So the Liver King can stay away from them. Which is number 15, steroid jaw. Okay, when a man's testosterone levels change dramatically, their facial structure changes. High testosterone levels equal big and defined jawline, a wide face with small eyes, a big forehead, and a large Adam's apple. Now, this is just what that's saying, but apparently that means you've got high testosterone levels. So, just throwing that one out there. And once again, the problem with a lot of this is that it does create body image issues for a lot of young men as well. And I just looked into it, and there was a meta-analysis done of 23 studies of young men at Western universities, and it showed that 90% of teen boys exercise with the specific goal of bulking up, and they often have body images problems related to anxiety and depression. I do have a problem with this kind of approach because it seems to be trying to medicalize a young man's desire to just be big and strong, which I think is a perfectly normal thing for a lot of men to want. And I don't like the medicalization of it because they call it muscle dysphoria. But at the same time, there is definitely a problem when you get a lot of these influencers out there who are trying to sell you this lifestyle that's completely unattainable, because it just sets your expectations all wrong. So if you are planning on trying to better yourself, go hit the gym, go do exercise, eat better, do all that good stuff. Just don't listen to con artists and grifters like the Liver King. Thanks for watching that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. I hope you're all having a very Merry Christmas. If you enjoyed that and want to find more, you can go to our website, lotuseaters.com, and subscribe for as little as £5 a month to become a premium member. But we do also have free content for those just wanting to dip their toe in first, including this recent video from Carl on reality against abstraction. If you're interested in finding more about what Carl is up to these days, you can follow him on Getter at Carl Benjamin. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again soon.